Hello everybody, welcome to Lunchtime Live. Happy Thursday. It's so good to be here as always. I have a little bit of news this week, not so much to show from the blog, just other stuff that's been going on. This week was the tail end of the Tour de Fleece, which is a spinning event. And it was also conference week for the Crochet Guild of America. And I was participating in both, so I didn't get a whole lot done on the blog this week, just because I had a whole lot going on with the other stuff. What I did get done on the blog this week was a tutorial for the 3-needle bind off, so you can check that out. For those of you who are new, I kind of just jumped in without any introduction this time. For those of you who are new, I am Pia from Stitches and Scraps, and this is Lunchtime Live, episode 55. Today we're going to demo shells and fans, so crochet shell stitches and fan stitches. So what is Lunchtime Live? If you don't know, it's basically my weekly video newsletter. So I first tell you all the stuff that's going on at Stitches and Scraps, and then we jump in, we finish off the video with a demo on a stitch technique or something either knitting or crochet related. This week we're doing shells and fans because 2 weeks ago somebody asked if we could. So if you have any ideas of anything you'd like to see, if you have any requests, you can email me, you can stick a message in the chat here. Let me know what you'd like to see and I will try and get it on air on one of these upcoming episodes as soon as I can. So as far as links to the things that I'm going to mention, in the description on this video, you'll see one link to a blog post. In that blog post, I've listed everything that I'm going to mention. So that way it doesn't all bulk up the video, but I've listed everything I'm going to mention in that blog post. So if you are trying to find the tutorial or pattern that I'm talking about, click that link and you'll see the whole list of everything right there. And you can find everything I'm talking about. So let me start over again with the stuff I jumped right into. What's new on the blog this week, and that is the 3-needle bind off tutorial that went up yesterday, I believe. So that's new on the blog this week. And coming up next week, we're going to have actually, let me jump back here. That 3-needle bind off tutorial, what it is, it's a way of sewing 2 layers of fabric together while binding off. Basically, you work through both layers and bind off at the same time. So I used that technique to finish the bottom of my date night clutch pattern, which came out last week. So be sure to check that out. It's a great technique for closing up the bottom of bags, or anything where you've got 2 layers that you want to join together. I probably wouldn't use it for socks though, just because it does leave a bit of a ridge. So that's the new tutorial. What else has been going on for me this week? I talked about the CGOA conference, and I do have exciting news I want to let you guys know. At least it's exciting for me. I don't know if it's exciting for you, but we did select board positions just yesterday, and I have been selected as president-elect, which means next year I will be president of the CGOA. This year I'm shadowing the current president. So I'm very excited about that because I really, really strongly feel that the CGOA is a place for every crocheter. If you crochet and you're not in the CGOA, really, really strongly suggest just take a look into it, see if you've got a local chapter near you. That's how I found them. The website is crochet.org, and check it out. There's a lot of exciting things going on. And this year, hopefully not this year, next year, 2022, we'll have our in-person conference, first one since COVID. So I'm excited about that. Speaking of COVID, no, sorry. It's allergies, I promise. So that was one of the things going on this week, was our conference, and we had lots of classes and lots of events going on. That's all settled down. The other thing that I was doing this week was the Tour de Fleece. And the Tour de Fleece is a spinning, it's not a competition, it's just a spinning event where you challenge yourself to spin every day during the Tour de France. And we take like break days the same days they do. And you join a team and it's a lot of fun, and you can chat with, you know, other people about the stuff you're spinning, and you generally want to challenge yourself to something new. So I challenged myself to do a cable ply, which is new to me, and I gotta say I didn't do a great job at it. I also didn't enjoy it that much. I think I prefer my 3-ply, but let me show you what my cable ply looks like. You're going to see a sneak peek of the next thing I'm talking about here, but I promise I'll get to that in a second. So this is the yarn that I made, and I want to show you a close-up of this cable ply. So you'll see that it's got, oh, let me find a bigger strand here. There you go. Well, how about that one? It's got kind of a fun construction to it. The way it works, you can see it's pretty round, and it's got a lot of different, like 4 different sections going on. And the way it works is you spin a traditional 2-ply, and then you take 2 of those 2-plies and you spin them together. So you spin that 2-ply extra tight, and then you spin them together to make the cable ply. Mine wasn't all that even, especially in my final ply I had some mistakes, but I did finish. I haven't even measured this yet. My guess is it's around 400 yards, and this is my very first cable ply, so I'm excited about that. As long as I have the screen down here, let me show you next week's pattern that's coming up. This was section 1 of our Mosaic Blanket Mystery Cal, so I'm revealing the mystery for next week. This is section 2 of our Mosaic Blanket Mystery Cal. This is the Swiss Cross pattern. So I just finished recording the tutorial for it, writing the pattern. It's almost ready to go, and I will have this out for you on Tuesday. Really fun design. I'm being careful not to show you what's above it because I already started in the next section. But I always like looking at the back of patterns too, especially something that's a blanket where the back's going to show sometimes. So let me show you what the back looks like. Don't look at that yellow part. Okay, there we go. And I think that looks so pretty. That's one of the things I really like about mosaic knitting, is the back looks really pretty too. You can sort of see the design that's going on, but there's no long floats like there is with Fair Isle. So I really enjoy this technique for that reason. Okay, so that is the Mosaic Blanket Cal. And if you haven't started in on that yet, there are 6 sections, and I'm giving lots of space in between each section so that you can join in anytime and catch up. So definitely take a look at that. Again, all the links to everything I've mentioned are in the blog post that you'll find in the description on this video. So, not a lot of people joined today. I don't know, seems like a quiet day today. Anyway, hopefully a lot of you will watch after. I know I didn't post a lot about it today. I just didn't get a chance to. Okay, so that is it for what's new on the blog. Let me make sure I got to everything here. I did. So now let's get into the demo for shells and fans. So I've got just a little swatch going on here of single crochet. And the cool thing about, you guys can hear me, right? I didn't check my audio. Let me double check the audio real quick, because that would really be bad if you guys didn't hear me this whole time. Nope, it says it's going. Let's see. Let's see here, is the audio? Yeah, it says the audio is going good. So hopefully you guys can hear me. Anyway, so let's get into this demo. So this is shells and fans. First of all, what is the difference between a shell and a fan? The truth is, there isn't really much of one. There are 2 different words that can be used to describe the same sort of stitch, but shell tends to be used to describe smaller versions of it that aren't as lacy, and fan tends to be used to describe larger ones or ones that have more spaces in between. And that's really the main difference. But any pattern you're using that has a shell or a fan should define what they mean by shell or fan. So let's start with a really simple one. Let's do a 5 double crochet shell. Okay? So I'm starting with a single crochet just to give us an anchor point at the beginning. Now a 5 double crochet shell has 5 stitches in it. I want to cover 5 stitches down here. So I'm going to skip 2 and then I'm going to work the shell here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then I skip 2 and I'm going to anchor it back down here with a single crochet. And that's a very basic shell stitch. That's a 5 double crochet shell. So what can we change about this shell? Well, instead of using the double crochet in the middle, we could use a chain space. So skip 2, let's do 2 double crochet. Let's do a chain space, just a chain 1 instead of that center double crochet, and then do 2 other double crochet. Now that looks like a V stitch with 2 stitches on each side, doesn't it? V's are a type of shell or fan stitch. They're just a very small one. Okay, so skip 2 and I'm going to anchor this back down. So now you can see the difference between with a chain space in it and just kind of rounded and smooth with all the double crochets. The chain space makes it a little more pointy, but it gives you a nice option for working back into it on the next row, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. Something else you can change, you can add more or fewer double crochets. Let's skip 3 and add, and I'm going to, this purposely isn't going to work because I want to show you something here. Let's make it 7 double crochets. So you would think that working 7 double crochets over the 7 chain spaces should be fine, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Here's the problem. A double crochet is only about as tall as 2 stitches are wide. Okay? So if you try to skip 3 and then start the shell, unless you've got some height here or you've got something that's leaning over that way, if you're doing this, it's going to curl right here. You really only want to skip 2 if you're using double crochet. So how do we fix that if we want a wider shell? Well, we use bigger stitches. So skip 3 and let's use treble crochets and let's do 7 of those. Sorry, it takes a while to do 7 treble crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So that is, well, skip 3 and then single crochet. So that is an option if you want to cover more width. You can see how much wider. So using a taller stitch not only gives you more height, it also gives you more width because your shell is rounded like that. Okay? So now what if, because here we replaced 1 double crochet with a chain space, right? What if we replaced every alternate double crochet with a chain space, or in this case treble crochets? Well, I've run out of room here, so I'm going to rip out this treble crochet one I did and let me just do a double crochet one. But what if I went, skip 2, right? What if I went double crochet and then the next one I skipped and did a chain stitch, so chain, and then number 3 is a double crochet and then chain, and then number 5 is a double crochet, and then skip 2 and slip stitch in here, or single crochet in there. Well, now you've got a much more open shell. So this is the same thing as this, just with more openness. And this is where people start calling them fans. If they're open like this, or particularly if they're bigger and open like that. So another option for that would be a 7 double crochet fan, but remember, because I'm using double crochet, I'm only skipping 2 stitches here. So you have to be careful with the stitch counts. Usually if you're doing something like this, people will just skip the edge stitches so that the counts don't get screwed up when they're working back into it. And I'm going to show you working back into this in a minute. Sorry. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, oops, I went 8, 9. Okay, so we have a 9-stitch fan here. Let's pretend I had an extra stitch to work with here and just slip stitch back down here. Okay, so now you can see this really beautiful, big, wide open fan, and this I would definitely call a fan. So shells and fans are really related stitches. Hi Karen, and thank you, I like them too. But okay, so shells and fans are really related stitches. Sorry about the crazy dog. And you can use the two words interchangeably. I tend to use shell for just about everything unless it's really big. Or if I have two in a pattern, if I have two different ones, I'll call one a shell and one a fan. Usually I'll call the bigger one the fan. So the things to review, the things you can vary in a shell and a fan stitch. You can vary how wide you make it by adding more stitches or by using taller stitches, okay? If you're going to skip more stitches on the side, you need to make sure that the first stitch that you're using is going to cover that number of stitches that you're skipping, okay? You can also add chain spaces in place of the stitches at various points, and you can change how many stitches you have in your fan to make it fill out more. So those are the things you can vary in a shell or a fan stitch. Let's look at how to work back into them. So, well, actually, let me talk about different ways you can work with them. Let's look at these two because they're the most similar. So you can work shells alternating, where you put a shell here. See, this is the low point, right? If I put another shell here, it will cover this space and it'll end up making a very nice closed fabric, okay? You can also work patterns where you put shells on top of other shells, where you just stack them. And then you have shell, 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 and you usually have something lacy in between. And you can also work just regular straight stitches back into a shell. So I'm going to show you some of those as kind of a exploration of different ways you can work into a shell. So let's start with this one. And this is something I love to do on borders, is I'll make a shell and then I'll come back and I'll work single crochets into each stitch and each space on this shell or fan that I'm working into. And that gives me, it just kind of edges that shell or fan and makes it more wheel-like, I guess, to my mind at least. And I think that creates a very pretty border, especially if you stick a picot in there or a picot in between. And then I'm going to come back down into this single crochet, but I'm not doing that yet. I want to show you what this looks like. So that's a pretty way to do a border with a shell or a fan. Now another way you can do it is to work into the spaces in between, or into the center of the fan. Let's start with this. Let's start with the spaces in between. So I'm going to get back up. Let's assume I worked a fan in this stitch here, okay? So I'm going to get back up to here, because if I had done that, it would be, and I'll show you that in a minute, it would be right there. Now I finished this stitch. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a single crochet in the top of the fan or the shell, because that's going to be my low point for this row, okay? And then I'm going to work my shell into this space. So I do the same thing. The 5 double crochet shell is the one I'm working. 3, 4, 5, and then I would skip 2, right, and single crochet into the center of this shell. And you can see how that creates a very solid fabric of the shells next to each other interspersed, right? Alternating shells. The other place you can work is into the top of a shell. So let's say that I had come up here. I'm just working some chains to get me some height, and then I'm going to work into the top of this shell here. 3, 4, 5, okay? And then I'm going, because I need to keep the height up here, I'm going to put a double crochet or even a treble crochet into the center of this, and then work into the top of this fan. Tina, no such thing as late. You are good. I'm glad you could join us. So now I'm working into the top of this shell. and I'm using those words shell and fan interchangeably, and then I'm going to skip 2 and I'm going to do a double crochet in here. So you can see that if I stack my shells, it gives me a much more open stitch with this lacy area in the middle versus if I do alternating shells where they're right next to each other and kind of nested into each other. So those are some different options for that. You can also change the roundness of your shell, and I'm going to rip all the way back because I really want to show you this on a base row. You can change the roundness of your shell by how you come into it. And what I mean by that is these shells started at a low base point right here with single crochets, right? So then making them around here gave me this nice rounded curve that comes all the way down to that base point, right? But what if I started instead with double crochets? So in between my shells, what if I had double crochets? So instead of doing a single crochet here, I'm going to do a double crochet. Okay, now I'm going to skip 2, and then here I'm going to do my shell, but I never brought the fabric down. Okay, I never did a single crochet to bring my level down. And then here I'm going to skip 2 and then do another double crochet. Well, what's happened here is this shell is much more upright, much more square, and not quite as smooth and rounded as this one was when we were down here, right? So you can get it rounded or you can get it more upright like this. And again, you can do all the same things with exchanging chain spaces for stitches or using taller stitches. The one thing is with this, you don't have to worry as much about your edge stitch being able to lay down flat along the skipped stitches. So you can have a little play in your skip stitches. The last thing that I want to point out that you can do with a shell is you don't have to use the same stitch all the way through. You can exaggerate your shell a little bit, and I'm gonna start back down with my single crochet here. Okay, you can exaggerate your shell by using a combination of stitches. So if I skip 2, maybe I'll start with a double crochet, and then I'll go to a treble crochet, and then I'll go to a double treble crochet, and then a treble crochet, and then a double crochet, and then that's 5, skip 2, and single crochet back down in here. So look at what that's done. That's given me this, and actually I should put chain spaces in between to get the extra height. Let me try that again. Double crochet, chain 1, treble crochet. There we go. Chain 1, because you're getting it higher, so you need to get a chain to bring it up. This should be a double treble. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Then a chain 1, and then a treble crochet, and then a chain 1, and then a double crochet, and then skip 2 and single crochet down here. Okay, so this is what I was trying to show you. You can get this really exaggerated puffy shell, and the more chains you put in between, the less puffy it will be, but you can get this lovely pointed kind of almost arrow-like shape with your shell. This is great for leaves and stuff like that. I love using shells as borders, and this is a shell that I might use as a border for something. So you can see all the different ways you can play with them. And this again is one that I'd likely call a fan rather than a shell. So are there any questions? I'm going to cut back to me here. Millie, hush. Shh, I'm on video. That's my dog. She's upset because I'm not playing with her. So are there any questions on any of that I showed you or anything? Otherwise, I'm going to just say bye and go let my dog out and have a wonderful weekend. And then I will see you guys I'll see you guys next week. If there's anything in particular you want to see next week, let me know. You can reach me in the comments here or on Facebook or on the blog, or you can always email me. It's just everything on all the social media and everything. I'm just Stitches and Scraps. So come find me, and I will see you guys next week. Have a great weekend. Bye.